everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Today's guest is Anton Milioti, bass player from the acoustic-ish Grateful Dead cover band, Crickets and Cicadas. Today, Anton and I spend a good deal of time talking about the Grateful Dead and live performance in general, but the majority of our conversation centers around a show that was Anton's first and still holds up in Phish history, that being December 30th, 2013 at Madison Square Garden. When a guest chooses a show to discuss, I tend to get excited over shows from the mid 1.0 era, 1992, 1995, 98, but over the course of today's conversation, Anton mentioned a few times that it's been 10 years since the 2013 New Year's Eve run. And when we break down some of the jams and remember the Phish zeitgeist around the end of 2013, an argument can be made that they were as different 10 years ago as they were 10 years before that and 10 years from today. On top of that, there was the recurring theme of the band celebrating its 30-year anniversary in 2013. That now takes on extra resonance, considering that we recently had the privilege of celebrating Phish's 40th anniversary. When taken in that context, this show takes on an entirely different dimension. So let's join Anton to talk about Phil Lesh, A Live One, and Dream set lists as we discuss Phish's show from December 30th, 2013 at Madison Square Garden. Anton, welcome to Attendance Bias. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm doing well, thanks. And I'm excited to talk about today's show and also to talk about your band. What I thought of when I went over and I started listening to the show you chose, December 30th, 2013. At the time of this recording, we're not too far away from a recent New Year's run, the 2023 New Year's run. And it was funny because the date, December 30th, as we all know, is usually upheld in Phish lore as the show not to miss, right? This past year, 2023, 12/30 seemed to get the short end of the stick. Not a lot of people walked away from this New Year's run talking about it, but this year that we're going to discuss in 2013, this is a very strong show. Even in my opinion, we'll get to it, if it's a little uneven, the highs are very high.
Most definitely. Yeah, man.
Well, but before we get to any Phish, you are the bass player of, and make sure I get this right, an acoustic Grateful Dead cover band called Crickets and Cicadas. Am I right? Do I need any correction?
Yes, I call it acoustic-ish.
Okay.
Because I'm weird. But I like to describe it if J-Rad and Billy Strings had like a mutant love child. It's very like intense jamming. Like we do like a lot of like 4-song sets, 5-song sets, 20, 25, 30 plus minute renditions of like songs that aren't normally jammed on in the Grateful Dead catalog. Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician or playing live out for trying to make a living at it for probably the last decade or so. Me and a bunch of friends of mine, we just put together this little group. It's 2 acoustic guitars and I'm on bass. Then we have a drummer. And it was just kind of a thing for us to like get a gig maybe once or twice a month, just to be able to have an excuse to get together, play Grateful Dead songs. Nothing like, not too much pressure. And then about a year ago, we started playing a little more. And then next thing you know, we did 100 shows last year.
Wow, in 2023.
Yeah. So like it's completely snowballed into this thing. Like I've stepped down to like super part-time at my day job and I'm doing this pretty much full-time now. Not at all the road I expected to be led down, but I am just going with it and enjoying it, and it's been a ton of fun. And we've really, I think we're like the busiest Grateful Dead band in New Jersey / PA right now, which is kind of crazy to me.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because it seems that in the Northeast, and you say New Jersey, PA, where about, if you can get even more specific than that, because it seems, and I'm in New York City, I grew up on Long Island, and it seems like you can't throw a rock without hitting a bar that has a Grateful Dead night, usually Sunday nights, sometimes Monday nights, the nights where like that they'll get the Dead fans to come out because they'll come out for any night of the week.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So when you say New Jersey, PA, that's a pretty long border. Where more specifically might listeners be able to find you guys?
We're based in like the Philadelphia, South Jersey, like Philly burbs area. So like Cherry Hill, that kind of area. So we play a ton in like Camden County. I'd say there's like the one gig that we do pretty much to a T every month is the first Thursday of every month. We're at Tonewood Brewing in Barrington, New Jersey. It's like 10 minutes away from Philly, right across from the bridge. And that's always like a ton of fun. We get like a couple hundred people coming out every time, and it's a blast. But yeah, but we play pretty much all the way. Like we've gone like down to Maryland, like Virginia. We're going to be going up your way a little bit in a couple of months. So I'm looking forward to that. First time we're playing out in the New York area. And we've gone, I'd say probably about 4 or 5 hours deep into Pennsylvania, like maybe like getting close to like the Pittsburgh-ish area. We logged some miles. Yeah. But there's definitely the Philadelphia area has such a ridiculous amount of Grateful Dead tribute acts. It's crazy. I remember like going through like Facebook and like trying to count up all the ones like I could find that were like all like within a 50-mile radius, and it was like almost 100.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's something for everybody, and there's different levels of talent, you could say. I'm not trying to badmouth anyone,
No,
but
I know.
anywhere there's like 4 or 5 guys who like the Grateful Dead and play different instruments, all it takes is maybe 2 or 3 hours of practice for them to get a gig, right? And that's good, like to keep the music propagating. However many years it's been since after Jerry Garcia died, there's always people discovering it and rediscovering it.
No, for sure. Also, I just from there being so many, that really just made me want to make our thing as different as I possibly could make it. Because, I mean, that's the whole point of this kind of music, and especially Phish's music and other bands that are like adjacent. It's like I don't want to hear it done the same way every time. Like I want it to be fresh and interesting and new. And I love like stumping the audience and like hitting them with something that's like.
What do you mean by that? Is it because I saw on your set lists when I checked out, I think I heard a clip of you guys playing Cumberland Blues. I don't know, 250 beats per minute, maybe. Like your drummer was going crazy.
Yeah.
I was so impressed, and no offense to the rest of the band, but your drummer, man, he really was able to plug in fills where I never thought on Cumberland Blues you can fit a fill.
Shout out to my brother Jim Burkhart playing the drums. That man has never listened to a lick of Grateful Dead like 14 months ago. And by now he's learned like 200 plus songs. So he is for sure the MVP. Yep.
Well, as a bass player, let me ask you, the other part of the rhythm section, songs like the one that jumps out to me is like Fire on the Mountain, for example. And your band is, as you said, acoustic-ish. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So a song that's so driven by the bass in the traditional sense as we know it, as played by the Grateful Dead, that Phil Lesh absolutely dominates that song. You don't know it's Fire on the Mountain until you hear Phil Lesh playing it. And to your band's name, Crickets and Cicadas, Terrapin Station also has like an extremely prominent bass line.
Oh, yeah.
When you kind of adjust or adapt your song to be acoustic, do you have any difficulty finding your way to adapt it specifically for your instrument?
Not particularly, because I play an electric bass. Like I'm not doing like an upright or like anything like that. Like so, we tried, and my whole thing is I just want to like the Joe Russo's Almost Dead inspiration. It's like I just want to be like, let's be as intense, in your face as we possibly can be, and as lively as we can be. So I don't know what yeah, I try to play things semi-truthful to how Phil does them. I mean, like obviously like Fire on the Mountain is like a very like specific bass line, which I definitely do, but I try to pay honor to him, but not try to be like a copy of him, because I couldn't copy him if I tried. That's
yeah, who could?
Yeah, no one can.
Do you have a favorite song that you like to play, like all things being equal?
Oh man,
if you made the set list, what song would definitely be in there?
I have a really strict policy of us not repeating a single song in a month. So like we kind of do the Baker's Dozen. That's another inspiration like thing from them. So like we'll play like 150, 190 plus songs in a month. So we're always changing it up. But Right now, it comes and goes, like which ones I love, but like Let It Grow has probably been like the one that I've been really digging, and like the jams we've been getting in it have been like there's a lot of opportunities in that song to just throw improvisational sections literally anywhere. So you can just we could like it feels like super free form, and I love that. I always love playing the 11, like a lot of like the really like intense like psychedelic stuff. Like I said, just doing like weird bust out songs, like we do like New Potato Caboose and like Unbroken Chain and stuff like that. And it's always like cool to like see some people out there that are like, oh, like that.
Where are you guys on Passenger? Have you played Passenger yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Passenger. We don't do that one as much as we should, but we've definitely done that a handful of times for sure.
No one ever has. No Grateful Dead iteration has ever played Passenger as much as they should.
Oh no, that song rules.
Are there any songs that you think are underexposed? Speaking of like rarities, any songs that you wish more Deadheads knew, that more Deadheads had been exposed to, that almost like undiscovered gems? My answer is Passenger.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm gonna like nerd out real hard.
Yeah, this is the place to do it.
Because there's like there are some times where like a lot of my exposure to learning a lot of like Grateful Dead songs was like the 25 or 30-ish tapes / shows that I got when I first got into the band. And unbeknownst to me, there were like some songs on some of those that like that was the only show where they played that song. But like, it was always like at the forefront of my mind when I thought about their material. So like, like stuff like that would be like Clementine, just like a song from like the Waxahachie era. So like the late 60s, like real kind of like like weird spacey jazz kind of feel. There's another song called The Seven, which is like
I've never heard of that.
That's like the 11's like
cousins to the 11.
Yeah, exactly. And like that was only played like twice. So like we do things like that where like I'll lob something like that, and if there's just one person out there who really like responds to that, then I've done my job, I feel.
All right, well, if you make your way up to New York,
oh yeah,
you have your set list already started to plan out. Okay.
Oh yeah, listen, if you're coming, Passenger, put it on there.
And where can listeners of Attendance Bias who are also Deadheads on social media, where can they find you? Where can they find clips? Where can they find out upcoming dates, stuff like that?
So, I mean, we're very active on socials. So you can check us out on Instagram at Crickets and Cicadas, or also on Facebook, which is on Crickets and Cicadas Acoustic Dead Tribute, I believe it's listed as. And I'm constantly posting our set lists, little clips of us, where we're going to be. Sometimes I'll put polls out there for like people to like kind of like bicker about like what they want to hear at that show, so it's cool. Like I'm really grateful for our little community of people that come and see us. It's a really nice tight knit group. So come on out, see us if you're in Jersey or Eastern PA.
Well, Anton, we got a sense of you as a bass player. We heard a bit about Crickets and Cicadas. Let's hear about you as a Phish fan with the Attendance Bias lightning round.
Yes.
Attendance Bias lightning round.
Anton, when and where was your first Phish show? It was this very show we are talking about today. So 12/30/13, Madison Square Garden. 10 years ago. Can't believe it.
So what got you into the band? Not necessarily at the time, but what's your Phish origin story?
I mean, we've been talking a lot about the Grateful Dead. So the Grateful Dead is the band that made me want to become a musician, and like listening to their live material and hearing the interplay of a rock band the way that was just made me be like, I got to do this. So I saw a bunch of further shows at the time who was around, like when I got into them. Rat Dog, Phil and Friends, whoever was around, Dark Star. And so got super duper into the Dead. And then I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years after that, my parents were like, you need to get a job. and I just started hitting Craigslist, applying for work wherever I could find it. And then I got a job interview at a liquor store that was not too far down from my house. And when I walked in there for the interview, the guy interviewing me turns out was my neighbor who lived like 3 doors down from my house. Never met or talked to him before, but I'd always seen him like driving by and stuff. And I was like, "You live in my neighborhood, right?" He was like, "Yeah." And we start just kind of talking. And then right before the interview was over, he was like, "What kind of music do you like?" And I'm like, "Well, like I'm super into like the Grateful Dead, you know." And he's like, "You like Phish?" I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I can't really make an opinion." He's like, "You're gonna like Phish." He's like, he's like,
you want this job?
Yeah, he's like, "You can start this week." So then I started working there, and shout out to my buddy Frank Mastica. He is listening. That's the man. But he played Phish constantly at work, constantly playing like New Year's '95, whatever, you know, all kinds of cool stuff would be playing in there like all the time. Like I remember like hearing like that like '94 Sugarloaf Mount, the Vermont show.
Sugar Bush.
Yes. Like I remember like hearing that like a lot. And I was like, wow, like these guys are really something. And my dad is like a humongous prog rock guy and got me into bands like Yes and Kansas and like Crimson and Weather Report and you name it, you know, like growing up. So I loved like all Zappa. I loved like all that kind of music. The weirdness of it, I think, really struck me. And I was like, wow, like this is like really something unique that I'm not used to hearing in this current day and age. And then I remember very specifically hearing You Enjoy Myself for the first time and being like, oh my God.
Right. All the ingredients were there.
Yeah. And it just, it completely, I started like listening to shows on the internet, you know, went and got a copy of a live one, hitting all the bargain CD store bins. And
at a time when CDs were on their way out.
Yes, CDs were on their way out, but my car did not have an MP3 player. So
Neither did mine.
CDs were in with me. So
I remember seeing stickers at shows, bumper stickers, where it was, "I came for the jams, I stayed for the prog." And then a little bit after, I saw the reverse. I saw "Came for the prog, stayed for the jams."
That's probably when the late '90s rolled around. It switched around a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So if this was your first show, December 30th, 2013, what was your most recent show? And what did you think of it?
So I was at the Game Hen show, and that was my most recent show. And I mean, what can be said? You know, I mean, absolutely the most crazy concert experience of my life, probably. And I've seen a lot of them. You know, that was insane.
See, this is my problem with very soon, I would say like January 3rd. By January 3rd or 4th, I got a lot of messages on social media and also emails, people wanting to come on and talk about that show.
Oh, you know, people are lining up for that one.
Yeah, but it's like, it hasn't settled yet. It needs to cool a little bit.
I still haven't watched the Pro Shot video yet because I'm just like, it's like you're saying, man, I'm still like,
you know, you don't take a pie out of the oven. You don't dig in right away. You got to let it cool on the windowsill a little bit. You got to get some context.
Were you there that night?
Yeah.
I've never been in a crowd that just lost their minds collectively like that. Like absolutely mayhem. Amazing. But you know, and I was also at my 10th year anniversary of seeing them for the first time the night before. So on 12/30. So I made it like a whole being like, this is a decade of me doing like Wook stuff. I'm gonna go all out. But yeah, you were right though. The 12/30 this year was or last year I should say, a little lackluster, but
they're all good. They're all good.
They can't all be singers.
That's right.
Still great though. I had a great time.
Aside from Phish, which band have you probably seen live the most number of times?
I mean, I've seen so many Dead shows, but there were all just like so many different iterations of the band, you know, like obviously Dead and Company, Further, blah, 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 whoever's out and about doing that. But I'd say besides that, probably Ween.
Are you from the Philly area?
Yes.
All right, I'm not surprised.
I mean, I literally ate a pork roll, egg and cheese sandwich like an hour ago.
Oh, I'm jealous. With some Scrapple?
Yeah, right. But no, like those guys that's my wife's favorite band. And I mean, they're always such a amazing show. And I feel like they're like the last true like we don't give a crap rock band. Like they just like get on stage and like their shirts are all like beer stained, and, like they got no shoes on, and they're just like cranking the amps up super loud and just being like as loud as they possibly could be. They're the best, man. I love them.
If you had a time machine and think of a band that you have never seen live before, living or dead, active or not, who would you go see? A band that you've never seen, whether due to the fact that they broke up before you were born or you just haven't gotten the chance to. Who's on your list of a wish list, a band you wish you could see live?
You know, I would have loved to have seen Jerry, obviously. And I honestly probably would have loved to have seen Cream in their heyday. I know, like the Grateful Dead gets like a ton of credit for like kicking off the whole jam thing, but like if you listen to like a live Cream show from like 1967, 1968, something like that, like they're doing like full bore type 2 style jamming that like I mean, I'd never heard the Dead jam like that, you know, like they were real ahead of the curve. And you know, Jack Bruce is one of my favorite bass players. I would have loved to have seen him.
Ginger Baker is one of my favorite drummers.
Yeah, exactly. Or you know, it'd be a toss between that or like Weather Report with Jocko, maybe, or maybe 1997 Phish.
Right.
If I get multiple trips, you know.
Right. We got to see how much plutonium we have for the flux capacitor.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
To steer it back to Phish a little bit, what is your most controversial Phish opinion?
You know, probably not so controversial because I just see people complaining about it all the time. But
that doesn't help. Everyone's complaining about everything all the time.
We're
the worst. You could say
we're the worst. Yeah. I am really not feeling the direction of Mike's new tone, and that's just me being like a bass player guy. You know, I like one of the things that really spoke to me about, and we'll get into this too when we start talking about the show, but like how much that bass cut. And
yeah,
like
there are a few times in this show that we're going to talk about what really does hit you right in the chest.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's like I remember so vividly being like, this is so booming and like subby and takes care of all the fundamentals that you want bass to do, but I could still like make out every single note and it doesn't sound like mud. Like it's very like sharp, but not like pingy or like I don't know, like he's just got like I should say, like my favorite bass tone like in the game. Mike, go back to the modulus, please. Sorry.
Finally, Anton, what is the weirdest thing you've ever seen at a Phish show?
Two things. I remember at this show, right before my very first show, I was sitting by myself, so I didn't really know anyone like around me. So I was just like kind of sitting and taking in the just the circus. A guy pulled out a like 2.5 foot glass bong and just started like hitting it. And I was like, whoa, like, and then one of the MSG ushers came up to him and like tapped him on the shoulder. And she was like, hey, like, you got to at least wait till the lights go down. And like, I was like, oh my God, where am I? So that was that memory I always remember. And then I also remember too, when we were at Fenway Park in 2019, when there was like the rain delay, they had everybody crowded inside like the concourse of Fenway Park. It was such like a humid,
yeah, it's gross
experience. It's like literally like being like jammed into a subway. And so everybody's like all queued up, like all just like sweaty and like drinking warm beer, like, and like just like waiting to get in. And then all of a sudden, like I just start hearing people like roaring and like going crazy. And I'm like, oh, they must have opened up the door and the show is starting. Like, I guess we're going in. And then the roaring was getting louder and louder. because it was getting closer to me. And then I saw that someone just had like a big like lawn statue of a deer that they were just like crowd surfing back. Like, and people were just like drawing on it and all kinds of stuff. Like, guys was getting like passed back. But I think what happened was someone like broke into like a storage thing that was in the hallway and just like started rummaging through and was like, look at this deer statue. And then just like started like ransacking the place. Incredible. I don't condone that behavior, by the way.
When was this show played?
Well, since we're still using our time machine, we'll go back 10 years and take a look at the 2013 New Year's Eve run at Madison Square Garden. So it was the usual December 28th to 31st. I went to all 4 shows. It was played after what is, I think now, considered a widely loved and highly regarded fall tour that itself culminated in the controversial wingsuit set, but the outstanding run at Atlantic City. And these were the first shows after that 3-night run in AC. The run, it should say, the wingsuit set at least, provided a lot of new material for the band to explore, to learn, for the audience to learn. And it was interesting for me that it wasn't until 2014 that songs like Fuego would really like blossom and take on this mantle of being a quote jam vehicle. But at the time, in like throughout 2012 and most of 2013, a lot of the online grumbling, at least the fan base, was there's not any new material. They're not playing any new music. And then the band delivers an entire set, like an hour and 20 minutes, an album's worth of new songs. And this run at New Year's Eve was kind of the chance to, all right, this isn't the event we're debuting it. Now let's see how it plays at a quote unquote regular show. And it was their opportunity to capitalize on that new collection of the songs. And the run itself was really good. I went to all 4, and my memories include the following, not necessarily sequential, but just when I remember back. They came in playing a lot of these wingsuit songs with a lot of authority, even songs that were new at the time, like 555, which we now take for granted. The Line on December 29th. On the 28th, they played Sing Monica. Underrated. So if you ever play Crickets and Cicadas for Phish, play more Sing Monica.
I love that song. I really do. I heard it at my second show and then never again afterwards. And like I've heard them, I remember hearing them play it during a sound check at Merriweather when I was there like a year or 2 ago. And I was like, oh man. And then no dice.
Yeah, it's become too much of a rarity. But also today, in today's show, the 30th, they played Wombat, which is awesome, and we'll get to that in a bit. But all these songs are well played, and I think the band was trying to find each song's place within the set list, like each song's role. And we as the audience, I think we're very still primed to hear these new songs. Something that I didn't remember when you first suggested this show, but as I dug back into my real-time notes from it, each show from the 28th to the 31st matched up with the number show that Phish was playing at MSG. It blows my mind. So what that means is on December 28th, it was the band's 28th show at MSG. The 29th was their 29th show, the 30th, and so on. And it just turned out there was a lot of big talk that it was their 30th anniversary together as a band on the December 30th, on their 30th show at MSG. So that was like a kind of Phish serendipity, and everyone was wondering, what are they going to do to acknowledge it? And they didn't really do anything, of course, until the Jemp truck set on New Year's Eve, but there were plenty of theories going around. But I also remember by December 30th, right, so at the kickoff of today's show, they had played 39 songs, and there were no covers, and there were no Gamehenge songs played up to that point on the 28th or the 29th. Unless you count Possum as a Gamehenge song, and maybe not, depending on who you talk to, not according to This Past NYE. But that streak would last through the 30th, and it was also the birth of the silly, made-up kind of Phish Billy Joel, quote-unquote, rivalry, where on the 30th, Tom Marshall tweeted, quote, Phish, 4 nights MSG, all originals, no repeats, put that bread in your jar, Piano Man.
I definitely remember the rumblings of all that, like going on the train, like going up there and stuff.
Yeah, and as a Long Islander, right, a lifelong Billy Joel fan, I was like, oh, shots fired. I am so disappointed in you, Tom Marshall. Let him be.
You're conflicted.
Yeah. And so of this run, the Gem Truck to me is the most memorable part. But the 30th has a reputation, as we mentioned earlier. And I think that this year, this show at least, holds up the standard that we've either rightfully or wrongfully come to expect from this date. So let me ask you, Anton, who were you? Where were you in the winter of 2013 that brought you to this show?
My pal Frank, my manager at the liquor store who got me into the band, was like, I got a buddy of mine who's got a ticket for one of the Madison Square Garden shows. It's behind the stage, but I'm telling you, it's awesome back there. Like, you're gonna want it. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Like, let's go. So went up with him and his buddy Beanie, and the two of them were sitting together in their own section, and I was by myself in the back. First time seeing Phish, I had really no idea what to expect. I had been listening to the band in earnest pretty heavily, I'd say about 6 months leading up to that. So I definitely knew like a lot of the tunes. You know, I probably recognized about 75% of what was played that night. Otherwise, really no idea on like how it's going to be or anything like that. I was really just kind of finding my way, navigating through being a gigging musician and trying to, you know, figure out what to do and what not to do. And, you know, was like playing shows for like $20 and beer money and, you know, just really, really killing it.
And just so we get a sense, how old were you for this show?
I had just turned 21. Fresh 21-year-old maniac. Yeah.
So you could afford the $18 beers at Madison Square Garden.
Yes, yes.
Legally.
They were probably like
The $13
they were probably
maybe.
13 back then. But...
Yeah. And this was also when Madison Square Garden was kind of in between its renovation, right? It wasn't fully renovated just yet. I think the 100s had been renovated, but I think the second and third levels were still as they used to be.
Yeah, I think it was that the first run with the Sky Bridge or maybe like the year before? I can't remember, but I was sitting in the 200s, right like bird's eye view above Fishman. Probably like 5 or 6 rows back. Honestly, I love that.
Those are great seats.
Those are awesome. Like I like the sound back there is killer. Like just what you see back there, which we'll get into. Was trying to like navigate what I wanted to be as a musician, where I wanted to take that part of my life. And that was definitely like where I was at in a headspace wise, like going into this show.
Well, let's break it down. You want to kick into set one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Set 1.
All right, so set one starts with Kill Devil Falls. And when this song was new in 2009, I remember a lot of fans almost immediately calling it Phish's version of Alabama Getaway. And I can hear it in this version, right? I mean, you can hear it in the structure of the song itself and the giddy up that it has, but you could hear it when they open a show with it. Everyone was just getting settled in. Like, if you're still getting to your seat, you are most likely not going to miss anything musically groundbreaking. But that said, it's tight rock and roll and a good, powerful way to get the show started. It's good for everyone to settle in. There's a small jam that begins with Page's organ at 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And I remember that being kind of a motif throughout the fall 2013 tour, where Trey used to solo. Page's organ was now taking over. That comes in again later during Heavy Things. But it's a good dynamic building rock for the most part, this Kill Devil Falls.
Yeah, I remember specific. I always love this tune just because it's got a special place in my heart, being the first song I ever heard them do. So every time they do it, and they did it on 12:30 when I went this last year, which I was like, yes. I remember like the lights going down, crowd going insane. Band comes out, they start the tune. It's got kind of like the way Kuroda starts the lights every show, where it's like kind of like blue and like real like subdued. I remember like after they do that like slow blues like breakdown riff, and then it kicks back into like the whoa,
Yeah.
like big white lights flooding up, seeing the whole crowd from back there. It was like someone literally threw a light switch on, and then it was just like 18,000 people going crazy, and then lights off, and like it was like whoa, like that was so wild. Like I'll never forget that. Like that's what every time I listen to this version of that song, it's like that moment, definitely.
Is that why you have attendance bias toward this show? Because it was your first?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. 100%. But I also listen to it all the time, and like as we'll get into, like a lot of the jams are really stellar in it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
And the next up, song 2, and not set 2, but song 2 is Bathtub Gin right after Kill Devil Falls. It's a great song to have in the 2-hole because it can play that role of like Get Back on the Train often does, where it's like a good, strong type 1 jam that, it's a good familiar song. Everyone is excited to be there. If you missed the opener, now you're in your seat by now. And this Bathtub Gin is very mellow for the most part. But then something happens, like something turns on a dime at about 8 minutes in, and it builds and peaks for 2 minutes. And then right away, again, it dissipates. It's like an early set 1 warm up, but it sounds like it could have reached higher if they wanted to.
Definitely remember that being the song where I was just amazed by John Fishman. Like especially like right after like they do the riff and they're starting to like drift like into the jam, right as like they're kicking it off. Like he's just doing some really cool, spacious, like very musical, very melodic drum playing. And I just remember being like, I'm not used to seeing people playing in an arena like this. Like I'm like this is like crazy to me. Like he's like this is like watching like a jazz show.
You mean having that vantage point from your seats, or do you mean the way he was playing?
I meant the way he was playing. Like so it was, very subdued. I mean, every single time I've ever seen a show in an arena before that, it was like, let's crank it up to 11. We're like we're like a big rock band, we're gonna like do our thing. But like just the subtlety of his playing and like the most gentle touch I've ever seen a drummer use in a setting like that.
Right, and their mix is so finely tuned that you can hear that.
You can hear like every like the most like subtle ghost note and like little like drifting kind of like little accents that he's doing on everything. Like that really stuck out to me in this jam in particular. And then obviously like the peak is awesome. Like, you know, that was like Trey whooping it up.
And they play Shaving a Haircut, a little joke, like the
Yep.
do.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right. So they knew that they were having a goofy night. And then they come on with Wombat. We had a huge cheer. I remember at the time that this song was a little divisive among fans, that some fans said, oh, it's just some stupid bullshit. You know, the band is rapping. It sounds like garbage. And then guys like me who was like, this is Phish. Like, this is fun, offbeat, silly. Like you mentioned Zappa before. Like it sounds just like Phish and it sounds nothing like Phish at the same time.
Listen, you got slap bass and clavinet. I'm sold. I don't care. I don't care what's going on. Like I'm in it to win it, you know, if that's the vibe. So 100% support Wombat.
Me too. And I don't know why they don't play it more often. I don't know why it's kind of drifted into rarity status. It stays type 1, so maybe they just didn't like find an exit off the highway while they were jamming. But I don't know. I liked it. I wish they would play it more often. I think there are windows for this to really blow up.
No, for sure. It's like, yeah, I mean, any of those funk jam songs, like I'm just so about. Like I remember them doing that, like at Hershey, like the You Sexy Thing. Like I think that was like the only other time I've heard them play that. And yeah, Wombat is great. I play Wombat again, guys, please. Come on.
After Wombat is Yarmouth Road, which easy choice if I needed to go to the bathroom. This is the time for me to do it.
I remember kind of squirming in my seat a little bit during the bridge.
Yes.
Song.
Yeah.
I love Mike, but the vocals on it are a little rough. I do remember that and being, you know, there's always that one moment I feel like, especially having taken lots of people to their first Phish shows where like something is really cooking and then they'll do something where like the person I brought is like turns and looks to me and they're like, all right, what is this? And I'm like, listen, you just got to get through this. And
yeah, Yarmouth Road is that part of this song. And we should probably say right up front now, there are times throughout both sets where the composed sections don't really hold together. There are parts, and we'll get to them. Although you said earlier accurately, there are really high points in the jams. There are also some points where you do cringe a little bit if you're one of the people who needs to have things go the way that it was written.
Yes. And I'm definitely one of those people. But at the time, a lot of those flubs slipped past me.
Of course, it was your first show.
Exactly. But yeah, no, but like listening back, I know when we get to punch you in the eye, like
that's exactly what I was thinking too. But we're not there yet because after Yarmouth Road, after we get back from the bathroom, 46 Days starts, and this my head was this is more like it, like just straight ahead guitar, arena rock. The energy is through the roof. I never have complaints about 46 Days. Love it.
Yeah. This is the Phish song I've seen the most, according to my
Lucky
my little tracking app. Yeah, absolutely This was like the one where I was like, yo, Trey is just one of the gnarliest guitar players I've ever seen. He's just got such a unique ability to just like straddle between all these amazing influences that I can hear in his playing. Like I hear like Stevie Ray Vaughan in a lot of the soloing on that track, and then it'll just on a dime be like some Zappa or like Steve Vai, like kind of like weird craziness, and then like right back into like a nice like not nearly as busy like Clapton kind of solo. Like he's
versatile.
Versatile. Yeah, like that I remember that being just like, oh my God, I can't believe it, like that. I think that was the jam that really made me be like, oh, I'm probably going to be doing this more.
If not Yarmouth Road, 46 Days will do it.
No, for sure.
And they follow up 46 Days, this big arena-shaking rock song with Lawn Boy, probably the quietest song in their repertoire involving instruments, at least, not counting a cappella. My favorite thing that I noticed during this was after Page, he introduces Mike, right? And we get the great bass solo. And then he introduces Fishman, and characteristically, Fishman stops playing altogether.
So I remember when Mike started taking the solo, Fishman just kind of faded out, and he got up off the drum throne and like just kind of like slowly sauntered over to like between like Mike and Page, and was just like, I don't even know what he was doing. He was kind of just like bobbing around up there.
He was being Fishman.
Yeah, he was just being him. And also, yeah, I knew that song, but I did not know that the way they like do that live, like how Page gets up and like strolls around the stage and stuff. So like seeing that was super hilarious. And yeah, Phish getting up and doing it with him was just like icing on the cake. Like I thought, I know it was definitely like a weird shift in energy, but it was a nice little, like, that was like my first taste of like, oh, like they do like funny gag stuff on stage, you know?
Yeah, and when you said it was a weird shift in energy, that was the vibe I was getting, because I don't remember honestly being at the show. I remember the Kill Devil Falls opener. I remember Down with Disease, not Down with Disease, Chalk Dust Torture is what I mean, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I remember bits and pieces, but I was listening back to it, 10 years later, and I remember thinking by the next song, by Heavy Things, that it's kind of hard to maintain a vibe here. Like it's like tremendous energy, slow, soft song, tremendous energy, definitely. Lawn Boy, and then Heavy Things, that this is kind of a studio Phish set so far, because I think the longest song so far is Bathtub Gin, and that might be for the whole set also.
I think it is.
Yeah. So it's like there's not much to dig into after Bathtub Gin, and that's only the second song. Heavy Things is good, and again, it's also when Page replaces Trey's normal guitar solo with an organ, which I love, because I remember in 2013, the big rumors were that they were going to play the Allman Brothers Eat a Peach for New Year's. So all the heavy focus on the organ kind of fed into that. And I love it during Heavy Things.
definitely listening back, it has that kind of ebb and flow of energy. But to me, just because it was my first, I felt like that set was a really great way to ease someone into the band a little bit. Like, I feel like if my first set of Phish was like Jam Filled Night or something, I would be like, like I mean, like, this is sick, but like, I don't understand what's going on.
I wrote, for Heavy Things, I wrote, this is good studio Phish.
No,
Which is like another way of saying what you just did, right? It's just like, it's a good introduction. It's balanced. You could call it uneven or balanced, because depending on who you are.
No, for sure. Like all of like the type 1 jamming is like real like nice, and it like definitely like kind of set the stage for me being like, oh, like this is what they're about. And then I mean set 2 changed all that, but we'll get there.
And you just mentioned the next song after Heavy Things is Punch You in the Eye.
Yes.
It was, false start, and it got marginally better from there, but the Landlady section is not well played. So if you're a big fan of Punch You in the Eye, you might want to skip this one, ironically.
Yeah, not much to say about that.
Yeah, right. Sample in the Jar, though, is there to save the day. I wrote down it's more standard Phish, in quotes, kind of like Heavy Things, where it's a good mixtape set.
Yep, that's what I mean. Yeah, we're going back to them being like Anton's here, it's his first show.
It's for you.
Let's lob him a softball, and
and these are all songs I like. I love Sample in a Jar. I love Heavy Things. All these like 46 Days. These are songs that if I were to make someone a mixtape, like you want to get into Phish, here are some songs to check out.
For sure.
And we're already at the close of the first set with Gotta Jaboo, which to me is kind of an unorthodox set list placement. I would think if this were played today, Bathtub Gin and Gotta Jaboo would be switched. Like Bathtub Gin, that jam would close the set, and Gotta Jaboo would be the opening or the second song groove to get everyone into their seats.
I definitely have not seen Jaboo close a set since this. I'm pretty sure. I mean, at least ones I've attended, I've not seen. But this was like one of the songs that I heard first when I got into the band. So I was really hyped and excited to hear Gotta Jaboo. That song also, too, really showed me their ability to just like listen to each other.
Yeah, it's great.
Like the jam in it is nothing flashy, nothing crazy, but they're all like kind of doing a real minimalist thing, but they all have their own specific roles and no one's like straying from it. And it's just got this really nice like unit that's like they're just like coming together as a band, It was like, making a song interesting without it just being a guitar solo shredding over the top of it. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of ebb and flow. Yeah, I was hyped.
Hi, everybody. Brian here to welcome you to the set break of today's episode of Attendance Bias. First, thank you for listening. And second, just a quick reminder to tell you that even though Attendance Bias comes to you for free, it does take a lot of work and it does take quite a bit of money to keep the lights on here at production. So I just wanted to ask a small favor if you could support the podcast in any number of the following ways. If you could leave a review or a rating of it on whichever podcast app you use. If you could spread the word, telling a friend or someone you think may be interested in it about it. Or probably the most concrete way is to go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate however much you can financially to help with the continuing costs of Attendance Bias. So thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the second half of today's episode.
Set 2.
And set 2 starts with what I would call probably the highlight of the show. Would you agree?
This is, without a doubt, the highlight of the show for me. It's still my favorite version of Chalk Dust that I've seen live, and I've seen quite a bit of good ones. This was the first, this had me completely changed my life. This is like the moment where, like what I said earlier, like the Grateful Dead was the band that made me want to play music. This jam and seeing Phish that night, but yeah, specifically this jam is what made me want to get really serious and do this for a living and practice. And like it just like lit a fire under me. And like I remember like spending the entire like next year and a half like just not leaving my room and just like playing like 8 hours a day, like because I just wanted to like be at least halfway to being as good as they were, and it was the first time I'd seen like a type 2 jam like in earnest, like a real stray from the chord structure. And it happens pretty fast at like right like out like it's probably like around like 4 minutes or so.
Even earlier, I have it written down as
like,
3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, they're just like Trey's just like, well, let's like just start taking lift off. Doing like really interesting like soundscapey like synth kind of work. Yeah, and I just like just being like, oh my god, like this is so cool. And just it's super intense bass and drums like dual thing at like the end of the song too is like the energy in that place was like crazy. Like every time I thought that they were gonna take that song back to the head and wrap it up, it just kept taking left turns, but not in a way that was like jarring. Like everything was very like they were just with each other like the whole way, and that completely just rocked my world. Like I listened to that jam so many times still to this day. It is so good.
I like how you mentioned that in Gotta Jaboo that they were like playing as a unit, right? You use that word. What I noticed, and I look back at my notes because my notes from this Cicadas torture are like 5 paragraphs long.
Yeah.
It seems like they were playing in duos, like 2 of them dueling at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end, the part that you mentioned, which is probably around 14 or 15 minutes, when Fishman really picks up the tempo,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of come back. It reminded me of in the movie Hellraiser, the puzzle cube that like comes apart, switches
Yeah.
dimensions, and then clumps back together again. And maybe opening a pathway to hell. I can't speak personally about Phish doing that, but that's kind of what it looked like. That cube that just is one solid piece, parts come apart, twist, move around in different directions, and then come back together to pull it off in the end. But that all happens orally for me, like your aura with, and audially, I guess I could say. This one blew me away. Like there are parts where you mentioned Page's soundscapes. That's wonderful. He actually focuses a lot on the piano in this jam too. Trey finally utilizes the whammy very well. I remember times in 2010 when it was just the talk of the town with the whale call that he just stopped doing that bullshit. But he found the way to use it, not just do it.
There's like that section in the middle too where Fishman is basically not even playing anymore. Like he's just doing like very light cymbal work and stuff like that. Everybody else in the band is just making like sounds of like spaceships taking off.
I called it planetarium fish.
Yeah. And like I just like I had to like remind myself that I'm like this is chalk dust torture still. Like this is crazy as hell. That oh my god.
Yeah, I wrote it's miles away from chalk dust torture.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And by the end
to be back there.
Yeah, right. And by the end, it turns into a stop-start sequence of jamming, which is not unlike the somewhat recently played Tahoe Tweezer. Right? Let's not forget, this is the same year as that. And if the New Year's Eve run is usually some sort of culmination of the peaks or the new discoveries the band has made over the previous year, stop-start jamming became very popular. Thank God, my opinion, that the woos did not catch on. At least not on the audience recording.
I don't remember there being a lot of wooing on this one, but definitely not as much compared to some other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Chalk Dust, I really cannot recommend listening to this enough. It is so good.
And then a hell of a call. Mike's song. What a call. Like, takes the energy that we're all just kind of like, the way you were just describing it, like, what did we just see? What did we just hear? Like, minds blown, faces melted, and they just ratchet all that up. It's a small version of Mike's song. It's like 8 minutes.
It comes out to very smoothly out of just like the simmering spaciness at the end of the Chalk Dust. So like it has like a really nice like oh god, like here we go. Like you said, not super crazy, real straightforward, but I mean the guitar is smoking. I mean, I've seen 71 Phish shows at this point. At some point it's really hard to keep it straight, everything that you've seen and like specific moments from like every show, but I remember specific licks from this solo that are just like ingrained in my brain that I steal all the time when I'm playing bass.
You wouldn't be a musician if you didn't.
No, yeah, I'm always like throwing it out there just because I can't help it. But right before like they wrap the song up when he's like really peaking it, there's like a lot of like really, like I said, not like insanely shreddy, but just his way to just make a melody that on the fly that really is just like an earworm is so amazing. Like I remember that just being like completely sending me for a loop.
And Mike's song, of all the different songs that it could segue into, they choose Devotion to a Dream, which is an interesting choice. I like the song itself, and I thought, without looking at the set list, the intro, in this case at least, is mostly just drums. I thought it was I Saw It Again for a second, the way the Fishman was playing, but you could kind of hear the crowd sit down on the audience recording.
That was a Wingsuit song, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, like they, it's like we were saying earlier, they were lobbing those songs out like all throughout the run, like seeing what sticks. And yeah, I don't think I've seen that song since that show.
It hasn't been played since October 15th, 2016. Oh, man. Which was in Charleston. So I guess just something about it hasn't stuck.
Wow, interesting. Because it's not, I know like a lot of people loathe that tune, but I don't mind it.
I don't either.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, well-written song. Like
I agree. There's room in the Phish universe for just a well-constructed song, period.
There's a lot of tunes in that collection of songs. Like Winter Queen, too, is another one that I thought is really well-written. And like just gets a lot of hate, I guess. But sometimes you got to take a little breather You know, like you just got hit with a half hour of just like really intense music.
Right. Mike's song isn't going to be the breather.
No, for sure. So, yeah.
And they don't just wrap it up. After Devotion to a Dream, they pivot to Ghost, which is a very interesting pivot. I love the rhythm. At like 4 minutes, Trey doesn't solo for once. Yeah. Right. And I don't mean that as like some sort of criticism. I like when Trey plays rhythm guitar. I wish he would do it more often, actually. No, for sure. No, and then they hit liftoff toward the end, and then it quickly closes the song. Like Mike's song, it's like, I think 7 or 8 minutes. Nothing, like you said earlier, nothing's going to blow your mind, but it's a good version of that song.
This is a tune, too, that like that jam had, again, like a lot of really awesome, almost like you were saying, like the duo kind of thing. Like a lot of really nice interplay between Mike playing like really percussive, like high register kind of stuff that it's like playing off of Fishman doing like work on the toms. Like it just had like almost like a real like Caribbean kind of like element in some parts of the jam. Really cool.
And then after Ghost is over, like Mike's song also, it kind of peters out because they meander for a bit. It doesn't just end with a big power chord. Fishman plays the Weekapog drum beat during the Ghost outro. So it's pretty fun. It leaves no doubt about what the sequence is going to be.
For sure. Yeah. Bass player guy, you know, like that, I mean, no matter how many times I hear it, that intro, that slap intro to Weekapog just never gets old. It's so good.
And this is what Weekapog is, the sort of song that makes the garden bounce.
Oh, for sure. That was definitely, well, I remember in parts during the jam in Wombat and then in this song, that was like me feeling the room move and being a little concerned. Because I remember being told about that before going in there, and I was like, I don't know if I buy that. And man, they were right. That was moving.
And during Weekapog, I had the thought that this is what makes it a good December 30th show. You know, I found myself slipping into that compartment that, oh, it's December 30th, it's a big deal. That it doesn't have to be intense or innovative jamming, just high energy dancing and giving the audience the sense that something big is possible at any moment. Sure. And that's true of every Phish show, but it doesn't always feel that way. And at this point of this set, it really did feel that way.
It definitely was that, like, just high energy, everyone moving. I just remember being so stunned at their ability to just captivate the entire crowd at like around this moment of the show, because we're probably about like 3/4 of the way through now.
Yeah, we're getting into the fourth quarter. Yeah,
and like, so I was just like, man, like this is unlike any rock show I've ever seen. Like, just like the dynamics of the playing while still keeping people like interested. It was blowing my mind for sure.
Yeah, I've taken a number of people to their first shows, and not every single one, but I could think right now of at least 2 who have turned to me and said, expressed those exact sentiments.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I took my dad to a couple Phish shows. Like I said, like he got me into a lot of the music that I love today and like the Grateful Dead and everything. And so, you know, when he Zappa, so I wanted to take him to a show, and it's funny, man. Like he's like a good luck charm. I've taken him to like 3 or 4, and every single one I take him to, it's just like we went to like 12/30/19 together, and that was like his like second show, And he was like, "Oh, he's like, they're always like this." And I'm like, I mean, when you come with me, they are, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Like, but yeah, it's nothing like it.
And after Weekapog, there's an immediate segue into Simple. The crowd loves it. You could hear it on the recording. One thing that caught my attention was about 2.5 minutes in, it's when they do the "We've Got Bebop" line, and Fishman with the drum fill. That sounds like it could have come from a Motley Crue concert.
Oh, yeah.
Nailing it. And I don't know, this might have been the most explorative and energetic that they've sounded all night. Not necessarily the biggest jam, but it sounds unlike what you would expect in this kind of type 1 show. Yeah.
No, but most definitely. I mean, a live one was just on repeat in my car for months leading up to that. So getting that was great. And it was cool. That was I did not get that for probably another 7 years afterwards.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know why, but they just weren't doing it when I was showing up after that. So that was like my white whale again for a little bit after this show. But yeah, I remember it being so good. And the end, they just get into they get into these really cool atmospheric jams throughout.
Yeah, more planetarium Phish.
Exactly. They go right back to that vibe, back to the chalk dust kind of space vibe, where they're really planetarium. Real just trickly and cool. And that takes us into Hood, I believe, right?
Yeah, well, listen to this. I was just thinking, if you put this on paper in front of a Phish fan and said, here's a set list, you don't know the show yet, but here's a set list you're going to see tomorrow night. Do you want to go to this show? So an 18-minute Chalk Dust Torture with a great jam, Mike's song, Devotion to a Dream, Ghost, Weekapog, Simple, Harry Hood. That's a Murderer's Row set list.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. And I remember when he kicked into the little reggae fill that starts Harry Hood, I was just like, yo, they're not doing this right now. It was very much because I recognize, other than Devotion to a Dream, I recognized everything that was going on in the second set. So it was just banger after banger.
And these are heavy hitters.
Yeah. And I mean, Hood, and I'm a huge reggae guy. My other band is a reggae band. Oh, big. I mean, I got a King Tubby shirt on. I'm huge into reggae. So Hood has always been in my top 5 songs that I've just loved, because it just balances the crazy progness and the reggae stuff. Hood is a song I've gotten a ton by now, and this one still really resonates with me. The jamming before the "You Can Feel Good," ending. Again, kind of back to what I was saying about Mike's song, where Trey's not blasting a million notes at you, but it's real. Everything is perfectly aligned and in its right place. The melodies that he's just coming up with on the fly are so good. I can remember like all of them, like just talking about it. Like, yeah, one of my favorite hoods that I've seen, definitely for sure.
And to not quite close the set, but they had like 2 set closers
Yeah,
after Hood, right? It was
yeah.
Cavern, or 3 if you count Hood. So it goes from Hood to Cavern and then First Tube.
Mm-hmm.
And Cavern is standard. It's what I would assume to be the end of the set. And during First Tube, it's interesting. Trey says, thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night at the end of Cavern. But then he plays First Tube to end the set. And Fishman even accidentally plays the drum beat for Cavern before switching to First Tube. I think, this kind of communication, everyone thought it was over, but it wasn't.
Yeah, right. I guess that's before they had the talkback microphones.
Right.
Now.
Right.
Yeah. Because, I remember that being like, because, I loved Cavern, too. One of the first shows that I frequently listened to for Phish was they had a Cavern opener on it that really stuck with me. And so loved that song. And he said goodnight, and I thought that was it. And bam, right into the First Tube. Him just running around the stage like a maniac, the whole lifting the guitar up thing, all of it. Gotta love it.
And they go off, they come back on for the encore. Absolutely incredible. Write this set list on paper. It's a 99% perfect set. Sorry, Devotion to a Dream. It has to be said. But they come on for an encore with Slave to the Traffic Light.
So good.
Unbelievable. If you're listening to a live one as your primer for this, this show is made for you.
Yup. Another I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but him just just the melodies that he can just come up with on the fly. Like another perfect example, light as a feather. But just the way that jam builds is so gorgeous. Well,
that's what a lot of these old Phish songs, like early Phish songs, I guess I should say, have in common, right? They have that kind of progressive, strange, composed section at the beginning, maybe a couple words in the middle as a turning point or a landmark, and then the jam is like a 3-chord progression that lays down a bed for Trey to just, as you said, make up these melodies. It's a bedrock for him to just kind of fly.
Yeah.
And Harry Hood and Slave to the Traffic Light are exact examples of that.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I also remember very, very specifically during this looking around and seeing people with teary-eyed and hugging each other.
Hands on their heads.
Yeah, this is we all it was everyone went on this ride together. It's I was saying, I'd seen a bunch of dead, quote unquote, dead shows before this, and I just did not get this vibe from being there. I'm sure it was different back in the day. There was something about this that was so its own entity. I could pinpoint so many reasons why I loved it. And then there were just also so many other reasons that are unexplainable for why I loved it that I just.
But you'd still pinpoint them. Yeah, you just can't explain. You can't put them into words.
Exactly. I just remember leaving there. When everyone just being funneled into the little hallways going out onto 34th Street, just being in complete shock of just what I witnessed. And also really, really upset that I didn't have money to get a ticket for the next night. I remember very specifically.
That was a good one.
I know. If only.
Well, Anton Milioti, thank you so much for coming on to Attendance Bias to talk about a number of things, especially December 30th, 2013 at Madison Square Garden. Another notable entry in the 1230 series, as I guess we could call it, but also to tell us about acoustic-ish Grateful Dead cover band Crickets and Cicadas. Can you tell us again, just another quick overview, plug it one more time before we check out of here?
So if you are in the tri-state area in New Jersey, PA, that lovely mid-Atlantic, we play all the time. We play probably about 10 to 15 shows a month. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Crickets and Cicadas. You'll be able to find it real easily. Always posting about where we're playing, always posting set lists, always open to suggestions. come on out, come hang. We really appreciate it. And thanks so much for having me on. And I am super grateful for 10 amazing years of Phish. It has been really great. I would not trade it for anything in the world, truly.
And that's it for today's conversation with Anton Milioti of Crickets and Cicadas. And we have a relatively short fact check today, but nonetheless, we got to make sure everything's perfect. So now it's time for the attendance bias fact check.
Attendance bias fact check.
The 1994 show that Anton's boss Frank played at the liquor store was from July 16th, 1994 at Sugarbush Mountain in North Facein, Vermont. It's an all-time classic. It was released as Live Phish Volume 2, and the second set features one of the craziest versions of Run Like an Antelope ever played. At the time of this recording, Sing Monica was last played on July 20th, 2016 at the Bill Graham in San Francisco. It was played during an incredible first set of rarities for a show that closed out a 3-night run at the Bay Area venue. The mashup of Wombat and You Sexy Thing was on August 11th, 2021 in Hershey. The band opened the show with You Sexy Thing, played Wombat second, but continued to tease You Sexy Thing throughout the set, and even changed some of the lyrics to You Sexy Wombat. When talking about heavy things, I mentioned that the rumors in 2013 was that the band would play Eat a Peach for New Year's. I definitely meant to say that the rumors were that the band would play Eat a Peach for Halloween. Either way, it hasn't happened. We have yet to see Phish play Eat a Peach. And that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Anton Milioti for joining me today, Phish.net for its help with the fact check, Phish.in for the recording used in today's episode, and the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show by leaving a rating and a review of it on your favorite podcast app. You can follow Attendance Bias on social media, and please visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias. Anything you donate helps. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.